In the previous class, we are dealing with investment management. We're dealing with investment management. Can anyone summarize as to what was discussed in the previous classes?
So the bond pricing was discussed.
Okay,
Bond prices. The prices of the bond is found by adding together the present value
correct.
and the present value of coupon payments and the face value.
Okay, okay. Now,
Then sir, formula you have told,
yeah, what was the formula?
like how for quarter and for yearly, quarterly, like
Correct.
formula is summation C divided by 1 plus R to the power of t plus m divided by 1 plus r to the power of t.
Okay, that is also
That
one
is
formula. There's one more
yes
that
sir, that p is equal to
yes.
c into present value, like pvifa
Okay,
r comma n
okay,
plus m pvif r comma n.
okay. I want Ganesh to tell me what is C in that and what is M in that. I want only Ganesh to tell me what is C in that and what is M in that particular formula. Ganesh, can you tell me what is C in that particular formula and M in that particular formula? Remember, please understand one thing. The notes for this have already been circulated on your WhatsApp group. It is your earnest request to open it and read it before any class. See, when I come prepared for class, I expect naturally you also to come prepared for class. At least under, uh, tell me the basics. I'm not expecting, something miracle, but at least when I'm asking you what is C and what is M, you should be able to tell you. You should be able to tell me. Yeah, can I, Ganesh, are you there here? Ganesh, are you there?
Yes, sir.
I asked you something. What is C in that particular formula and what is P in that particular formula is what I asked you. And you know why I'm asking you this question?
So your voice is breaking, sir.
I said, what is C and M in that particular formula, which Rohin just told? What is C and what is M in that particular formula? Yeah. What is C and what is M? Ganesh, do you know the answer? Don't waste time.
No, sir, I don't know, sir.
I'm marking you absent. Hereafter, please understand. If you don't answer, I'm straight away going to mark you absent because when notes are given to you, it is your duty to read it. Clear? You're not coming here to listen to any, TV show that you come blank minded. You have to come prepared because this is serious stuff that I'm talking about. Remember, in your investment management, you have altogether 43 formulas to be remembered. I'm repeating it. You have altogether 43 formulas to be remembered. And this type of an attitude is not going to help you in any ways. So please take my word seriously. This subject looks very rosy, looks very nice when we are talking about it, when we are discussing about it. But when you sit down and try to solve it, it becomes very difficult if you don't know the basics of it. Is that clear?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So, uh, by the way, do you have present value interest factor annuity tables?
No sir.
You don't have it. Okay. Okay. Fine. The reason being, I wanted to solve some couple of problems, but anyways, I will solve it later. Okay, we'll discuss something else. So please understand, I'm repeating it once again. This is a formula that I'm going to use constantly. This is a formula that I'm going to use constantly hereafter. This P is equal to C into bracket present value interest factor annuity R n plus M into bracket present value interest factor R n. Okay. Why I'm using this particular, no, the details of it is mentioned here. C is coupon payments. Coupon payments, that is interest payments, are regular. That means interest payments do not change over a period of time. And if things do not change over a period of time, I hope you know you have to use annuity. Whenever you are calculating your loan installment, whenever you are calculating your insurance premium, the amount is same every year, right? And when the amount is same every year, the factor that is used is always annuity factor is used. Why? Because this amount remains same. That's the reason annuity factors are being used. But when every year the value keeps on changing, you don't use annuity factor, you just use present value interest factor. That's the only thing that you have to understand. If payments are same every year, they are not going to change, always annuity has to be used. If payments are going to change every year, then only present value interest factors have to be used. I hope you know this. No, this doubt was clarified in your second semester itself. Anyone has any doubts? Understand examples like payment of insurance premium. Okay, every year the premium is going to remain the same for your term life. Next, if you are paying loan installments, every year the loan installment is going to remain the same. If you are expected to receive a fixed amount of cash inflow every year, okay, it is a regular payment that you're going to receive every year. So in all these cases, annuity values have to be used. But when payments are going to change every year, then in that particular case, only present value interest factor are to be used. Clear? This has to be clearly understood by you, because in due course of time, you will not be able to understand, or you will not be able to distinguish whether to use annuity or whether to use interest factor. In such case, you need to clearly understand that when payments are regular or when payments are fixed, whether it is inflow or outflow of funds, you have to use annuity. And whenever payments are changing, that is whenever payments are variable, you have to use present value interest factor. Clear? So accordingly, we will use these parameters to find out the price of a particular bond. Now, as Rohin said, if we have to calculate interest semi-annually, this is the formula that I'm going to use hereafter. I'll be using this particular formula. And whenever interest has to be calculated on a quarterly basis, I'm going to use the next part. Clear? That is quarterly basis. And I also did mention to you some important concept, that as the time frame keeps on reducing, okay, interest computation becomes much more difficult. At one point of time, you will not be able to distinguish between successive time frames. And when that stage is reached, the only option that is left is we have to calculate interest on compounding basis, right? And that is where the concept of compounding interest comes into picture. Whenever you are not able to distinguish between two successive time frames, in that case, compounding interest comes into picture. Clear? Next. Now, once we know that we have ascertained the price of the bond, okay, once we have ascertained the price of the bond, see, understand one thing, the price of the bond is, the face value of the bond is going to be 1,000 rupees, always. The face value of the bond is always going to be 1,000 rupees. In this case, right, if by using the formula P is equal to C, present value interest factor, and that particular formula, if you arrive at the price of the bond, which is going to be greater than 1,000 rupees, okay, please understand here, my I'll just make a simple note here so that you can understand. Assume that my par value is 1,000 rupees. My par value of the bond is 1,000 rupees. I use this particular formula, P is equal to C into bracket present value interest factor annuity. Okay, I use this particular formula, and I arrive at the value. And when I arrive at the value, let us say this value is 1080. Now, if you observe, the price of the bond is 1080, by which we have calculated the formula. And when you compare this price with the par value, when you compare this value with the par value, 1080 is greater than 1000 rupees. So in this case, if the price of the bond is greater than the par value of the bond, we can say that the bond is at premium. That is what it says. The bond is at premium. Okay. So if 1080 is greater than 1000 rupees, which means the bond is at a premium, right? On the other hand, I use this same formula once again, and I arrive at the price of the bond. I arrive at the price of the bond. The price of the bond is 986 rupees. The price of the bond is 986, right? So when I arrive at this particular price, 986 is lesser than 1000 rupees. So when this particular situation is reached, we can say that the bond is at a discount. So we have to understand the meaning of the word discount. Are you able to understand? Look at this particular equation. So premium bonds are bonds when the price is greater than par value. So 1080 is greater than 1000 rupees. So in this particular case, we can have a bond which is at a premium. On the other hand, 986 is less than 1000 rupees. In this case, the bond is at a discount. When price and par value both are same, then we can say it is a par value bond. This is a discount bond, this is a premium bond, and this is a par value bond. There are one more equations here. There is one more equation below that. Okay, that is what we will see in the upcoming class. Okay, now what does this mean? YTM always stands for yield to maturity. Okay, yield to maturity is a very important concept when we come to the pricing of bonds. Always remember two things. Shares are always traded at price. Shares are always traded on the price. Whatever is the price of the share, on that value, the shares are traded. But bonds are never traded on the price. Bonds are always traded on the yield that they generate. So if shares are traded on price, bonds are always traded on yield. Okay, bonds are always traded on the yield that they have, and yield is nothing but this particular value that we are going to ascertain, that is yield to maturity. In other words, if I have to just explain you a basic concept here, remember we studied interest rate risk. And what is interest rate risk? If price increases, okay, then the interest decreases. The rate of interest decreases. Okay. See, if the price is more, please understand here, the price is more here. In this particular case, the yield has to be less. That is my required rate of return, that is my yield has to be less. So only if these things are satisfied, only then we can have a premium bond. Look at the next one. Here, my price is going down. My price is lesser than par value. If my price is down, my yield has to go up. Yield in the sense, otherwise, that is the rate of interest. My rate of interest has to go up. So look at this. Here it says YTM is greater than the coupon rate. Clear? And if both are same, naturally, there is no change in the value. Any doubts in understanding this concept?
No, sir.
Sure, there is no doubt in understanding the concept. Always remember two things. Sorry. Bonds are always traded on their yield, and shares are always traded on their price. That is the reason why when the stock market goes down, bond market always goes up. And whenever bond market goes down, it's an indication that the stock market is going to go up. Why? There is always a inverse relationship between share market and the bond market. The reason being, bonds are always traded on their yield, whereas shares are always traded on their price. That is the main difference why both these investment avenues move in opposite directions. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, This is a relationship that we have to understand. I don't think this is there for your syllabus right now. I'll just skip this. Okay. Next is, as I said, we have to understand what are the various yields that are going to be necessary for us to understand as to how bonds are going to be traded. Remember the first line that I have written here? I have mentioned here, bonds are commonly traded based on the yield and not on the price. This statement is very important for you to understand. Tomorrow, if somebody says that I have a bond which is worth 1,800 rupees, please buy it. Don't go and buy it, because bonds are never traded on their price. Bonds are always traded on their yield. Remember, if any bond is having a value of 1,800 rupees, which means its yield is low. Why? Because price is inversely proportional to yield. So if the price is going up, if the price is above 1,000 rupees, which is the par value of the bond, in my case it is 1,800 rupees, which means its yield is low. And if yield is low, that means your bond is not a good bond. That is the reason bonds are always traded on yield and not on price. Now, we'll try to understand how are how are bonds classified based on their yield. There's something called as current yield, holding period yield, most important thing, yield to maturity, or this is called as YTM. The most commonly used method to estimate the yield of the bond is called YTM, that is yield to maturity, and last one we call it as realized yield. So these two are more practical oriented yields. Other things are more of a theoretical based of yields. But still, since we are in the theory class, we need to understand 1, 2, and in fact, we have to understand all these 5 different types of yields. Clear? Now, this might be look a bit confusing, but it is very simple for you to understand. Now, just for a moment, forget that we are studying about bonds. If we were studying about shares market, and if I had asked you, calculate what is my current return, how will you calculate current return? If I ask if you are calculating the current return of the share, how will you do it? On the numerator, you will have your dividend. You will have your dividend that is going to be on the numerator divided by the beginning price of it. Beginning price means the price at which you purchase that particular bond. Suppose the bond has, suppose the share has given a dividend of 4 rupees. Suppose the share has given a dividend of 4 rupees and I have purchased this particular share, let us say for 50 rupees. Okay. In terms of return, how much is my return? Can somebody calculate this? Just cancel this. So this is 100, by the way. I want it in percentage. So how much is this? So what is my yield? What is my return? My return is 8%. Are you able to understand? My return is 8%. Getting it? In this particular way, I calculated my current return. Now, how do I calculate my capital return in terms of shares? I use the formula ending price minus beginning price, the whole divided by beginning price. In other words, I purchased the share for 50 rupees. I sold the share for, let us say, 70. I sold the share for 75 rupees. I purchased the share for 50 rupees into 100. Can you please tell me what is my capital return? So it's going to be 25 divided by 50 into 100. Okay, 5, 2. So my return is 50%. Are you able to understand? So my current return is 8%. My capital return is 50%. Are you able to understand this? The way we have calculated current return and the way we have calculated capital return, on the same basis we have to calculate current yield and holding period yield. So let us try to understand what do you mean by current yield and what do you mean by holding period yield. Okay. Now this is a formula. So current yield is nothing but annual coupon payments that you receive, that is the annual rate of interest that you receive divided by the bond price. For example, let us suppose Rashmi has a bond which she has purchased for a face value of 1,000 rupees, Face value of the bond is 1000 rupees, and the bond is giving a rate of interest of 15%. So what is 15% of 1000 rupees, Rashmi? 1 5. What is 15% of 1000 rupees?
150, sir.
So on the numerator, it will be 150 divided by 1000 rupees. Are you able to understand? If you want in the answer in percentage, just multiply it by 100. So you'll get your current yield. Clear? On the same way, we have holding period yield. So whether it is you are in a profit or you are in a loss, depending on what is your at what price did you purchase the bond and what price you sold the bond, it will tell you whether you are in profit or loss. And in that particular time frame, you might have received the coupon payment, okay, and whole divided by the beginning price of the bond or the par value of the bond. Okay, this is called HPR, that is holding period return. So if you technically look at it, the formula for current yield and holding period yield are both same the way we have used in the previous slide. Okay, so this formula is same for shares and as far as bonds. Only thing is the terminologies change, and this formula is also same for bonds and shares. Only again the terminologies are different. So that is how we estimate the holding period yield and the current yield. Clear? Let us see an example here. Suppose Rohit has purchased a bond. Rohit has purchased a bond for let us say 1000 rupees, and he has sold the bond for 1100 rupees. So what is his profit? What is his profit? Rohit has purchased the bond for 1000 rupees, sold the bond for 1100 rupees. So his profit is going to be 100 plus the particular bond which Rohit purchased, it is giving a rate of interest of 10%. Okay, so what is 10%? 10% of 1000 rupees? It's 100 rupees. So 100 plus 100 divided by 100 plus 100 divided by the beginning price of the bond, that is 1000 rupees, the par value of the bond. So totally it is 200 divided by 1000 rupees. Okay, 200 divided by 1000 rupees. Whatever answer comes multiplied by 100, you will get your answer in terms of percentages. So that is going to be your holding period return. Any doubts in this?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So these two things are quite easy to understand, quite easy to remember. Okay, but these are generally not followed or generally not used in terms of estimating yield for the bond. The most commonly used is yield to maturity, so YTM. This is a very important measure, or this is a very important calculation in terms of estimating what is the actual yield on the bond. Okay, and this is the formula. Please remember this formula. This is a very, very important formula. Frequently problems have come on this particular formula in your exam. Okay, so let us come to this particular formula at a later stage. We'll try to understand the theory part of it. Why YTM is very commonly used. First thing is, it is accepted all over the world. That is one of the main reasons why it is commonly used. So it is most widely used tool in bond valuation. Okay. Second thing, this particular formula that is there, it tries to it tries to find out the present value of the bond. That is very important. Okay, it tries to find out the present value of the future cash flows of the bond and then arrive at the actual value of the bond. This is very important. And because it estimates the actual value of the bond using the present value factors, that is the reason it is most commonly used. Clear? This is the second point. Third point is, investor, whenever he wants to expect any return or whenever he wants to expect certain rate of return, okay, whenever investors invest money, they want a specific rate of return. So if they want to know a specific rate of return, the calculation that they are going to use is the YTM calculation. And that is the reason, these are the main two reasons why it is commonly accepted worldwide as a single measure to estimate the value of the bond. Clear? Now, to arrive at the value of the bond using YTM, we have to understand certain assumptions. And what are the assumptions? These assumptions are very important because if any of these assumptions are fail, if any of these assumptions are not satisfied, or if the company fails to satisfy any of these assumptions, then you will not be able to use this particular formula. So let us try to understand what are these assumptions. First thing is, say for example, as I said, Rashmi has purchased a bond worth 1,000 rupees at a rate of interest of 15%, okay, for 5 years. Okay, this is the par value. This is the par value of the bond. This is the rate of interest, or I can call it as coupon. Okay, this is the time, or N, whatever you can call it. Right now, the condition, if I have to estimate YTM, the basic condition is, in these 5 years, understand, in these 5 years that I have issued the bond, in these 5 years, I should not make any default. Okay, I should not make any default in terms of coupon payments and the principal amount. Okay, that means every year 15% of 1,000 rupees, come what may, I have to pay Rashmi 150 rupees, whatever is the case. So there should not be any default on payment of this particular rate of interest. Okay, this is point number one. Second point, when Rashmi wants to calculate yield to maturity on the bond, the only condition that Rashmi has to satisfy is, she should keep the bond with herself for 5 years. She should not dispose of the bond in between these 5 years. That is the second condition. Are you able to understand? First condition is, there should not be default on the payment by the borrower. Second condition is, the lender, that is Rashmi, should not sell off this particular bond before 5 years. That is the second condition. And third condition, again, what Rashmi has to do, whatever interest that she receives every year, whatever interest that she has to receives every year, she has to reinvest this immediately. This part is very important. She has to reinvest this 150 rupees at the same rate of interest. That means once she gets this 150 rupees every year, she has to again reinvest this money at the rate of 15%. That is what it says. Let us say Rashmi has purchased the bond 1 year ago. Today I pay a rate of interest of 15%. The moment she get 15% of 1,000 rupees, which is 150 rupees, the moment she gets this 150 rupees, she has to again reinvest this money into an investment avenue that has specifically 15% rate of return. Only if these three conditions are satisfied, then we will be able to estimate yield to maturity. If any one of these conditions fail, then we will not be able to estimate YTM. Clear? Now, let us come to the formula part of it. YTM, again, as I said, it is yield to maturity. The word yield means you have to hold it till the year. You are going to get an yield only on maturity. So the formula is C, which is nothing but your coupon rate. M is nothing but your maturity value. Okay, M is your maturity value. And P is nothing but the present value of the bond. P is the present value of the bond. N is the number of years for which you are holding the bond. These are constants, 0.4 and 0.6. These are constants. We cannot change them. They have to be remembered as it is. Please understand, it is 0.4M and 0.6P. Most of the students, when they write in the exam, they interchange this. They write 0.4 here and they write 0.6 here. Your answer changes. Okay, your answer changes. It has to be written as 0.4M plus 0.6P only. This is the way it has to be written. Are you able to understand the logic here? Any doubts in understanding a very important concept in terms of yields, specifically bond yields, that is yield to maturity? If you have any doubts, please tell me.
No, sir.
Next one is yield to call. Okay, now yield to call is quite simple to understand. The first thing is, yield to call, this concept is applicable only if the bond has a call feature. Call means the investor or the company who has issued this particular bond may anytime recall this particular bond. Again, I would take an example. Rashmi has purchased a bond for 1,000 rupees. Yield is 15%. Sorry. Rate of interest is 15%. Okay, time, let us say I'll take it 10 years. Now, if this bond that she has purchased if it has an option to be called back, okay, if it has an option to be called back, which means it has a call feature. Anytime during these 10 years, anytime during these 10 years, the company might recall the bond from Rashmi. In such case, when Rashmi is going to surrender this particular bond, when Rashmi is going to surrender this particular bond back to the company, what is the yield that she is going to get? Or how should she calculate her yield? If this concept is been asked, this is a formula that we have to use. So this is called yield to call formula. So this is yield to call. Okay. So let us try to understand. Applicable only if the bond has a call feature, point number one. Okay. Second thing is, in such case, the issuer of the bond is entitled to call the bond back. That means this is called as a buyback. Okay. The bond prior to the stated date of maturity. That means before 10 years, I can recall the bond. In such case, how do I calculate my yield to call? This is called yield to call. Previous slide was yield to maturity. Here it is yield to call. So this formula is what we are going to use to ascertain yield to call. Clear? Again, in terms of applicability, this is not generally used. Only YTM is used because bonds do not I would say bonds which have a callable factor are not generally accepted in the market because it creates uncertainty. But still, it is there in the theoretical concept. That is the reason I am specifically mentioning it here. Is it clear? The last part is realized yield. I will just tell you this, okay, and then you can ascertain how do we estimate this particular array. First, we'll go to the example. Okay. First, I'll take you to the example, then we'll see what is realized yield. Now, directly go to the example here. Once you understand the example, then we'll explain the theory part of it. There is a bond which has a par value of 1,000 rupees. It carries a coupon rate of 15%. Maturity time is 5 years. Okay. And right now, the bond is available in the market for 850 rupees. Can anyone tell me whether it is a premium bond, whether it is a discount bond, or whether it is a par value bond? Can you please tell me?
Discount.
It is a
Discount.
It's a discount bond. Why? Because clearly it is told to us that the par value of the bond is 1,000 rupees and the bond is available in the market for 850 rupees. Right? The bond is available in the market for 850 rupees, which means it is a discount bond. Clear? Now, I have purchased this particular bond in the 0th year. This is my investment. I have purchased one bond for 850 rupees. And this particular bond is going to give me a rate of interest of 15%. 15% on what? 15% on par value always. 15% on par value. 15% not on 850, but 15% I'm going to get on par value. So in the first year, I will get 150 rupees. Okay. The moment I get 150 rupees, please understand, the moment I get 150 rupees, I have to reinvest this. I have to reinvest this. And out of 5 years, please understand, out of these 5 years that I have, okay, I have only 4 years left now. Because I have received the interest in the 0th year that I made a purchase, I received the interest in the first year. So the moment I received interest in the first year, I have to make a reinvestment. Okay. Anyways, we are running out of time. So in my next investment management class, I will show you a live demo of how we calculate reinvestment yield, and then we will switch to the problem part of it. Okay. I'm right now not going to confuse you because it takes a lot of time to explain me other things also. Clear? So I'll stop here. Assume that I have not discussed realized yield, and in my next class, whenever the class comes, I will be discussing about realized yield. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
We have 30 people here. Who are the people who have not attended? Please come in the video mode. I want to take a photograph. Gautami, I can't see you. There is light behind you. I can see the light. I can't see you, Gautami. Just a minute. I can't see Narayan, Vishnu.
Sir, unable to turn it on after update. I am facing this error, sir.
Fine. So I'll stop the class here. And in my next class, I will start with problems on tax management, specifically on income from capital gains. Okay. Please sit down with your calculator, paper, and a pencil or pen. Okay. Thank you.